You might call yourself a writer, but are you actually? What makes someone a writer anyway? Is it an MFA degree, publishing credentials, or just natural talent? Or does it simply require a love and passion for storytelling? You may have heard the saying, as long as you write, you are a writer. And I do mostly believe this. That said, I think there is one thing that anyone who considers themselves to be a writer needs to do in order to be effective in their craft. Because if you don't do this one crucial thing, then it's going to be difficult for you to grow in your abilities and be perceived as a legitimate writer. So what is this one thing that anyone who wants to be a writer must do? It's read. It might sound obvious, but not necessarily everyone who says they want to be a writer actually reads books or reads as much as they should. Can you imagine a musician who never listened to music or a film director who never watched anyone else's movies? These situations would be baffling, right? But sometimes I hear from authors, including in comments on my videos, who say they don't read at all or maybe haven't read since they were required to read in high school. And my advice in this case is always the same. Pick up a book, any book, because you absorb so much about the craft of storytelling simply from reading. And I don't think you need to be overly prescriptive in what you read or how you read it. It could be a classic book. It could be a bestseller. It could be a lesser known, more obscure book. It could be traditionally published or self-published. It could be an audiobook or an ebook or a physical book. It could be within the genre you're writing in or outside of it. That said, I would recommend reading other novels if you're writing novels and reading other nonfiction if you're writing nonfiction. And if you're interested in pursuing traditional publishing, I would focus your reading efforts on books that have been published within the past 5 or so years, just because that is going to help you get a sense of readers' current appetites and the publishing landscape you will be entering. So now I want to give some advice for how you should be reading and what you should be thinking about in order to really maximize the benefits of reading on your own writing practice. I'm not trying to give you homework of any kind here, but I promise that being just a little bit more reflective and intentional when you're thinking about what you're reading and what you responded positively and negatively to is going to work wonders for your own writing. And that's why I think it is so crucial that anyone who calls themselves a writer also considers themselves a reader. One quick thing before we dive into the rest of the video, if you could hit that thumbs up button for me, it takes just about a second, but really helps out my channel so much. And if you haven't yet subscribed, consider joining our amazing community. That will make sure you don't miss out on all my next videos. Every week, I either cover a specific writing tactic like today's video, or I give insight into the publishing industry as that's my professional background. The first thing to evaluate when you're thinking about books you're reading and how they could inform your writing is the characters. Which characters in the book did you like and which did you hate? And can you pinpoint what you liked about them and what you hated about them? Try to figure out how the author elicited that emotional response in you, whether it's good or bad. What did they put into the story that made you feel that way toward these characters? Did the character do something that made you not like them anymore? Or did you not like their tone or the way they phrased things? How does the author tactically convey the characters' personalities, their voices, the language that they use, etc.? For fiction, character is really everything. So studying the characters that give you a strong emotional response when you're reading are going to help you craft more compelling characters in turn. Next, I want you to think about how the story is actually told. Note the author's overarching structural choices. What point of view is the novel written in? And did you find that point of view effective, or did you wish that the narrative was either closer to the characters or more detached from the characters? Did you feel like we got into the characters' heads as much as we wanted to, or could it have been pushed further? Think about what tense the story is written in. Is it in past or present? And how did that affect your experience of the story? Was this a single storyline novel, or did it encompass multiple storylines? And in the case of multiple storylines, were you equally invested in all the storylines, or did you gravitate more towards some rather than the others? If you are currently stuck on what POV to use for your novel, or you're confused about POV terms, check out my video on how to choose POV for more of a deep dive. And if you're enjoying all my writing tips, I have great news. There's so much more available for you, just waiting for your exploration on my newsletter website, chapter-break.com. Every week, I'm either dishing out an exclusive interview with a literary agent or a best-selling author, or I'm exploring specific editorial case studies from my background as a developmental book editor. Signing up to Chapter Break is going to give you my exclusive resource, my story self-assessment worksheet. This is a fun quiz designed to help you see your story in a new light, identify what's working well, and what could improve on the next draft. The links to download your story self-assessment and check out Chapter Break are in the description. As you're reading other stories, I want you to also analyze the author's style. Can you describe their writing? Is it lyrical and atmospheric, or is it swift-moving and punchy? Do they use a lot of figurative language, or do they stick to plainer language? And again, what effect does this have on you as the reader? This is the one area of analysis that I recommend doing as you're reading versus thinking about after you finish the book. It can be super helpful for you to note or highlight passages that strike you as you are reading. Maybe copy them into your notebook, or highlight them on your e-reader, or underline them if you're reading a physical book. Then take a little note on what you liked about this passage. What kind of tone or mood does the author's language create? And how are they using language to convey a certain emotional effect? And how are their words actually achieving that emotional effect? Something else to think about as you're reading is the genre. Did this book match your expectations for the genre? What genre conventions did it include, and which did it exclude or turn on its head? Does it include any genre-specific tropes or cliches? What does it add to the genre that makes it new or different? And more broadly, think about if this book delivered the experience that you thought you were signing up for when you picked it up and looked at the genre. Did it match your expectations, or did it feel like a bait and switch? This is really important for you to consider when you are thinking about how you're going to present your own genre and pitch. Because of course you want your book to deliver the reading experience that the reader is seeking. So analyzing whether a book did that for you or not is a great way to figure that out. Basically, the lesson of today's video is to learn how to read like a writer. This is a critical skill that's going to immensely strengthen your storytelling abilities. Whether you think consciously about how the sausage got made or not as you're reading, it is going to impact your own approach to your work. And that's a good thing. This isn't about copying another author's style at all or writing something derivative. It's also not about finding some formula that worked in this book and then trying to match it in your own book. There's no one way to write, but taking inspiration from and learning from others is part of engaging in an artistic craft. It's part of what makes you a writer. I recommend doing this exercise and thinking about all of these elements for a wide variety of books, including those within your genre and outside of your genre. Because the more stories that you engage with, the more you're going to absorb and then be able to play with and experiment with in your own work. So let me know in the comments what the latest book you read was. And if you haven't read one in a while, that's totally fine, but I hope that this video has inspired you to pick one up soon. If you're looking for some more tips on improving your writing, check out my video on free ways to strengthen your writing abilities. And before you head out, don't forget your free story self-assessment worksheet and my newsletter link in the description below. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on my next video, and give me a thumbs up to help out my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and happy writing.